Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be diving into the MIDGARDS Messers and Fox Knives Eastwood Tiger. So this is a pretty large knife in all dimensions, coming in at 8.96 inches long. It has a 3.75 inch Tonto blade of Bowler N690 stainless steel. You got a very aggressive looking, I guess you could call it a clip point Tonto, Americanized Tonto being it's a straight edge from the transition to the tip. You do have a nice swedge up top. I like the way that swedge comes down and then it meets with the Tonto right here, so it gives you some nice lines to the blade. You got fullers on both sides that also add a degree of flair, in my opinion. Very aggressive jimping here. You can see there you got those peaks and then you got the space areas. And I'll be honest, you know, I have neuropathy in my hands and certain materials really bother me. So initially, whenever I put my thumb up here, I thought I was going to be god awful. But after doing a bunch of cutting with this and just doing different things, it's not as bad as I expected. Now, prolonged hard cuts, I would probably have to throw gloves on me personally, but like I said, not as bad as I expected. This version has a nice stone wash finish on it. Probably gonna butcher this, but this right here is a Goody von Poppel, I think it is, design. There's his maker's mark right there, and then you have the MIDGARDS Messer's mark as well on this side. Being this is a Tonto, and you have almost a 1/4 inch blade stock thickness on this, so it's a big old beefy knife. MIDGARDS is definitely known for that. And I'll tell you what, it might not always be the most practical, but it sure puts a smile on my face. But look how stout that tip is. That thing means business, and they even thinned it out a little bit with this top swedge. You can definitely do some hard stabbing with that, putting it into some wood, do some light prying. You'd probably be perfectly okay with that, but I'm not saying go out and do that. It may void your warranty, I have no idea. So being that you have this nice transition right here, you have a secondary tip right there, or secondary point, whatever you want to call that. And whenever I'm doing drag cuts, I'm going to stick the tip down into whatever it is and pull back. That's one benefit of this type of Tonto. And then of course, for piercing, you have that massive tip right there that we're talking about. Now, in my opinion, this knife is definitely not intended to be a EDC as far as like a super slicer or anything. More of either like a self-defense blade or a hard use knife. And pretty much every hard use knife that I've ever reviewed on this channel, they're not going to be the best cutting tools. They're going to excel at something. This one's going to excel at penetrating with that tip, or you had to do some batoning or something. That's where this one's really going to benefit. You know, you can break down boxes and stuff. We did that with this one, and it did it fairly well. You do have this very short saber grind. So, of course, being that this is, I think it's 0.24 inches thick blade stock, and that short grind height, you're not going to be able to get it down too thin. Anytime you feel that, and you can actually feel the edge, you know, it's going to be pretty thick. So behind the edge thickness on this one, if I recall correctly, it was 35 thousandths. So at that thickness, you're still going to be able to slice certain things. Depending on how sharp you get that edge, you can do a lot more. This one came pretty sharp out of box. Not the sharpest knife I've ever gotten, but definitely sharp enough to get a lot of cutting done. The ergos on this one were pretty good too. Whenever we were doing the wood shaving and pushing into it really hard, my medium-sized hands is such a big handle, I can get right up to the flipper tab and choke up. And, you know, for the most part, it's really comfortable. I was nice and locked in, and as much handle as I have left over when I'm choked all the way up, should be able to fit your large, probably like extra large hands just fine on this one because of the larger handle. And then because of the milling pattern on the titanium frame, it offers the perfect amount of grip without being uncomfortable. You have this nice diamond texture right here, and then they did a little milled out section to kind of give it like an inlaid look. I like that. And then the rest of the handle, you have these large chamfers going all the way around to kind of give it a contoured feel in hand. And then you have this radial pattern underneath. I think it's a very nice, aesthetically pleasing pattern on there. I do wish they would have put it on the lock side as well, but to me, that's not the end of the world. Let's check out the deployment action of this one. So you have a flipper tab on this one, and you do have a fuller that is exposed down here. So if you want to, if you come down right there and give it a nice reverse flick, you can do that if that's what you choose to do. Or you could also grab it like this and then slide up that fuller to open it up, like a, you know, if you want to slowly open it just in case you're around a bunch of sheeple people and someone you want to not scare them, you could do that. Or if not, you do have jimps on this curved flipper tab, which I like seeing that, so you don't have a pokey spot or anything. And as you can see, that flipper is literally perfectly in front of that pivot, so you're gonna have a lot of momentum. Once you break that detent, this thing comes rocketing out, especially being that you have the mass of this heavy blade. As soon as it takes over by itself, which is right there, the mass of the blade is just gonna carry that thing open pretty much every single time. You also do have chamfers on both sides of the scales right there, like a landing pad, so it's nice and comfortable. Let me show what I'm talking about. Nice and comfortable. Once you finish the flip, your finger falls in that and it's nice and comfortable. Things like that, those are just some extra attention to detail that I would want to see in a knife at this price point. But nice and snappy action because of the well-tuned detent. And one thing that I've noticed with pretty much, I think, every Fox knife that I've ever owned is they use these white ceramic detent balls instead of the black or whatever color that is, gray, that we're used to seeing. And there's a difference. And I think the difference is how perfectly round they are. If I'm not mistaken, I think on how perfectly round, because of course, if it's not a perfect ball, then you have a little imperfections causing it to not glide as nicely. I don't remember if there's anything else about it. If any of y'all have any knives with the white detent balls, let me know if y'all experience the same type of thing. One thing I do like about the Italian designers is their fit and finish as far as like machining goes is top notch. They do a lot of crowning. You can see the crowning rounding over right here. Love that. And they did an exceptional job. Very clean milling on this show side scale. My particular version has the bronze anodized titanium frame. They have, I think, blue and just gray. Your hardware on this one, you have a Torx T8 for your pivot. Unfortunately, they went with T6 for the body screws. I don't really understand that choice because of the massive nature of this knife. Two reasons for that. T6 have far better chance of stripping out than T8 in my experience. And I'm sure these are high quality screws. I prefer the T8 as well, so I don't have to swap drivers. I can just keep the same driver throughout. All that's not a deal breaker for me personally, but I understand if you have a different feeling about that. You have a geared titanium backspacer. Look how thick that backspacer is. It's pretty much flush with the scales. You can feel it, but I don't think that's going to add anything to your grip or anything. I never really noticed that when I'm cutting stuff. You have a hidden lanyard post back here. I'm glad they didn't put a hole into the scales. I think it looks a lot cleaner, especially with this nice looking milling pattern. One thing I did notice, and I don't think this will ever be a problem for me, I don't know. Anytime you have these super wide scales like this, if you have skinnier fingers, you can definitely fit your finger far enough in there. Hopefully you can see right there where they kind of left that portion of the edge. Kind of blunted a little bit because I can touch that. Now I have to kind of push my finger in there kind of hard. To me, that's never going to be an issue. It's not sitting right up at the top. And, even if I put my hands down like this, which I would never be doing anyway because it's in the right side of the pocket, sitting up against the side of my pocket. And the way this handle's set up, the furthest point is pretty much guiding my hand. So, flip it over. You just have flat tie scales on this side. I don't love the pocket clip. I think it just looks like a parts bin clip to me. It looks like one of those old gas station pocket clips. Now, it functions fine. Now, if you wear jeans that have a very thick seam right here on your pocket, you may have to lift the clip up some because you don't have a bunch of ramp there, which I'm kind of glad they didn't put a bunch of ramp because that's where my palm of my hand was sitting. So if that was up any higher, you'd probably feel that, or I would probably feel that, but it clears the seams of my jeans. I don't have real thick jeans. We live here in the South. We don't have super cold weather, so I'm not wearing super thick jeans ever. Now, definitely not a deep carry, but due to the heft of this knife, I would want something to be able to grab a hold to, have a firm grip when I'm pulling it out of the pocket, and that's what's sticking out of the pocket. So it's quite a bit. They also, as you can see, they inset that clip into the frame some. So you have those two screws and you won't have any side to side play because of the way it's sitting into the frame. And it's a very sturdy clip. And like I said, it functions well. I was kind of worried that whenever I pull it out of the pocket, it would get bunched up in the lock relief right here. However, they did a good job of knocking off the sharp edge right there. So it goes over it fine. And the retention spot is far enough in front of that relief that I never noticed that at all. Due to the sheer size and thickness of this knife, you're definitely going to feel it in the pocket, no doubt. And because of that flipper tab, anything that you put down in this pocket is going to be rubbing against that. Not something that bothers me at all because I usually have my knife in whatever pocket by itself. Maybe some keys or something, but I'm not really worried about this. And like I said just a second ago, you're definitely going to feel this one in the pocket because of the thickness and the actual heft of this one. This one comes in at 231.5 grams or 8.16 ounces. It's a chunky monkey. Now, when I have jeans on, unless it's like a pound and it's super massive in all dimensions, a knife like this at 8 ounces, I can carry it. Now, I'm not going to be carrying, 2 knives like I usually do. It'll probably be just one. And I probably won't have any extra gadgets in my pocket because I don't want my pants to be sagging, but I got a belt on, so it's not going to be cumbersome for me. I've carried this one quite a bit, and I've carried some a little heavier than this one. My Cold Steel 4 Mag Scout, carried that one a good bit, and it's heavier than this one. So now let's move on to some size comparisons. We have the Spyderco Manix 2 XL, which is pretty much identical in overall length, and it dwarfs the MIDGARDS Messer's Little Viking. I'm sure it's a lot more similar to the full-size Viking. Two excellent size comparisons. We have the Microtech SOCOM Elite, which would be identical in length if it didn't have this glass breaker on it. And then we have the Conwu Django XL. The Django is just a smidge shorter. Next is just a little shorter than the Bestech Fairchild, and it's just a little longer than the Spartan Heartsey. And lastly, it's just a little shorter than the PMP Knives Beast Prime, and it's about a 1/4 inch shorter than the Cold Steel SR1 Lite. Now, being that no knife's perfect, let's go over some nitpicks and complaints. Like I said, the jimping is a little aggressive. However, this is intended to be a tactical, hard-use knife, so you should know that going into it. Also, on that same note, I get it. They want you want to make it thick so it can handle some major abuse, but 30 thousandths is kind of pushing it because every time you sharpen it, that thing's getting thicker and thicker, and I have some hatchets that are about that thickness. So I think it could have been thinned out just a little bit. Not much, but another thing that's not really a deal breaker for me. I would have loved to see a usable sharpening choil here. You can see it's already hitting the plunge grind right here, and it's going to start to flare out more and more, getting harder to sharpen right there unless I cut in one myself. They could have maybe brought the plunge grind back all the way instead of coming out like that, kind of like Spyderco does. I don't love the pocket clip. Like I said, it looks kind of like a gas station clip, but it doesn't hurt the functionality of the knife. It actually functions fairly well, so I don't find that to be a deal breaker either. I do wish this milling pattern was also in the lock side, and especially being that this is a heavy duty knife, I would have loved to see T8 hardware throughout on this knife. I don't ever like seeing the T6, but especially not on these heavier use knives. You'd think, you would at least have T8 or bigger. So who is this knife for? If you're looking for a high quality, very well made, tactical, heavy duty user that should be able to handle just about anything you throw at it, the MIDGARDS Messer Eastwood Tiger is a fantastic option. The combination of its machining, overall design, and striking appearance makes it a standout piece for anyone's collection. If you are interested in this knife, I will have it linked down below in the description. That's going to be it for today's review. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification for more in-depth knife and gear reviews. Have you tried any knives from MIDGARDS Messer? If so, what are your thoughts? And what do you think about this Eastwood Tiger? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave those down below as well, and I'll do my best to get back with you. Thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time. Keep those blades sharp. Smile more. Peace.